So I'm in a documentary coming out in December on Showtime. It's called Porndemic. It's about the 1997-1998 HIV outbreak in the porn industry and my hunt for the patient zero, the guy who was most likely responsible for about a dozen transmissions of HIV. Turned out to be Mark Wallace, real name Mark Goldberg. And just kind of makes me think about my years writing on that industry. I began my research in, I think, September of 1995. For about 3 months, all I did was read every book and every article I could find on the industry, and then just started sending out interview requests, which kicked into gear, I'd say, by December, January of December 95, January 96. And I wrote on the industry until October of 2007. So almost to the day, it's 11 years since I sold my website, lucasback.com, and completely cut my ties to the porn industry. Have not kept up to date with anyone in the industry. Except perhaps one guy who I guess works behind the scenes at times. But yeah, generally just completely cut ties. So I'm just thinking about my memories from approximately a decade that I spent writing on the porn industry. See, one thing that just stands out is the absolute deadening effect it kind of had on me. I had friends who said, like, I remember when you used to be a really smart guy. You had all these thoughts about religion and politics and culture, and now all you can do is talk about porn. That was discouraging. But I just noticed kind of a deadening effect from being around that industry. Then a lot of people noticed that I became morally desensitized. There was a strong kind of a nihilistic tendency from being around that industry. It was hard to maintain moral standards, good conduct in speech and behavior, as you can imagine. And people saw the decline like fairly rapidly within months. Thought I'd become much more desensitized, much more crude. Just started like talking like a pornographer. There were just, for a writer, there are just so many amazing stories in the industry. So many heartbreaking stories, so many fascinating stories. People tend to be open and honest. Now, of course, there are also liars and deceivers in the industry, but there is a strata of honesty in that industry which I don't think I've encountered anywhere else. So, generally speaking, people in the porn industry tend to be unpretentious, tend to be fairly open and honest if they trust you. And hundreds of people really opened up to me in the interviews they gave, and so I'm wondering why was they able to establish so much rapport with these porn people. And I think it comes from early childhood dynamics, growing up in foster care, kind of learning to navigate around dangerous people who would hit me, who would pose a threat, kind of learning to read emotions and learning to survive in very chaotic environments when I was just a baby. And kind of learning to, I guess, trauma bond. When you share the same trauma coming from a chaotic home life, pretty much everyone in the porn industry comes from a chaotic home life. I was able to share that from my early years. And so I guess I was kind of able to trauma bond. Neil Strauss talks about this in his book on love and relationships. He says that he had an emotionally incestuous relationship with his mother. meaning not physical incest, but emotional incest, in that she was frustrated with her romantic relationship with his father, and so she would cherish her relationship with Neil and try to use that to supplement the hole in her soul from not being in a fulfilling romantic relationship. And so Neil, as a young boy, was drafted into playing the role of his mother's substitute husband, and it was like very gratifying for him on the one hand that he could meet his mother's emotional needs like this, and that he'd be so important to her, and she'd say all these great things about him. On the other hand, she would go ballistic whenever he started to develop interest in other girls, because it was like being unfaithful to her. And like for his brother was able to have girlfriends, it didn't matter. But if Neil had girlfriends, his mother would just get furious. And so he was kind of locked into this very sick, emotionally incestuous relationship with his stepmother, which enabled him to trauma bond with celebrities very quickly. And so celebrities would open up to him in a way that they would rarely do that. And I think he attributed it to the way he developed this emotionally incestuous relationship with his mother, and then was able to move out of that to just trauma bond with people very quickly, make them feel safe and get them to open up. And I think I had a similar dynamic with my reporting. So on the one hand, it was an industry filled with fascinating stories and heartbreaking tales and drama and constant conflict. So it was ideal for a blogger, a gossip columnist, a reporter, a journalist, a writer to immerse oneself in the belly of the beast. On the other hand, the industry has this deadening effect that kind of saps your drive for excellence, your will to succeed. There, in a sense, there are no great stories in the sewer. So when you're in the porn industry, you are all alike swimming in the sewer. And some people may swim through the sewer with more dash and elegance than others, but you're all in the sewer. And it's hard to create excellence and honor when you're swimming in a sewer. So there was that kind of that deadening effect on the soul, kind of a deadening effect on any commitment to excellence. It just kind of had a warping effect. I just remember my friend saying, "He used to be such a smart guy." As though my IQ went down 10, 20 points during the time I was in the industry. Of course, you're profoundly affected by the people you're around. So if you're around highly intelligent, well-read people who are erudite and intellectually alive, that's going to bring those parts of yourself out. But if you're around people who are not so well-read, not so well-educated, not so intellectually alive, not leading lives devoted to excellence, that's going to spill out and have a tremendous effect on you too. So I love the openness, and of course the topic was at least initially interesting, and then it became very deadening. It became like one of his jobs way out. I came to talk about it, that it's like working in a salt mine, and everybody wants to go mainstream, which is like to get out of the industry, rejoin acceptable society. And I know a lot of the writers in the industry and I, we would talk about, we were toiling in the salt mines. So on the one hand, there are all these amazing stories. On the other hand, there's just this deadening, stultifying, nihilistic effect of having anything to do with this industry. And we'd make rueful comments about, you can tell the content of someone's character by the way they earn a living. And then we'd follow that up with a pretty bitter laugh. And any of the good things that we developed from the industry, such as money and fame, and there was there was this sense that it was bought with dirty money, and that it wouldn't last. That it was an ill-gotten gain. That there was no honor that was possible. There was an erotic excitement around the industry, but generally speaking, I found it much less erotically charged than the times I spent in acting classes, working as an extra on TV shows and regular Hollywood movies. Those times, that was like jungle sexuality. That's like the cool, cold sexual predation was just obvious, and there was just much more sexual tension, sexual energy, and a kind of a jungle sexuality ethos in Hollywood than I noticed around the porn industry. People tend to become desensitized in the porn industry, and that does not make for strong erotic attraction. So usually being on a porn set was no more erotic an experience than going to a grocery store. Other good things about it is that you got to know people over a course of many years. So I was there for about 10 years, so I knew some people for 5-10 years. You see them grow up, you see them get married, you see them have kids, you see them go through major life changes, and so the more depth you have with people, then the more interesting it is to talk to them. Generally speaking, it was really hard for anyone to maintain a marriage in the industry. The exceptions were some of the business people, some of the sales people. But the business people who had a lot of money, of course, then they had a lot of options, a lot of access to women, which did not make for sustainable monogamous relationships. So people at the top, the most money, they had a difficult time maintaining relationships. Almost everyone did, except like a handful of salespeople I knew for whom it was just a job. They weren't super rich, so they didn't have a ton of options. They were just able to pay the bills. And so some of the salespeople I knew, they were married for 20, 30 plus years. There's a saying in the porn industry that it's like a family. So yeah, like heroin users are a family, and so porn stars are a family too, in the same sense that heroin users are a family, and that you accept everyone's foibles. There's not a lot of judgment, not a lot of moral judgment in the porn industry. People's eccentricities are accepted. There's not a lot of pretension, so there can be a great deal of honesty, a great deal of humor, some very funny people, and they have their own kind of wisdom, even though it's coming from the dark side, you could say, but they know human nature really well, some parts of human nature really well, and so they're able to cut through pretension and BS and have a lot of funny, cynical, smart takes on the human experience. So that's one of the things I enjoyed about being around the industry, is the laughter, lack of pretension, the honesty, the acceptance, the absence of judgmentalism, and yeah, being around people who didn't have a lot of pretensions. It's funny that the most excited, the most upbeat that I ever saw at an industry event was at a news conference in something like April of 2005. There was a new HIV outbreak in the industry, and so they were holding a news conference at a ballroom in Studio City, I think at the Hilton, and just seeing all the cameras there, like all the porn people, including myself, we were just like really excited that we were part of something that was in the news. I think there'd been 3 HIV cases in the previous couple of months, and I think the industry was shutting down for 30 days. and just the presence of all the TV cameras just like made everyone really alert, excited, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. Like, this is our opportunity to go mainstream. And that was fairly common. Whenever TV cameras showed up, people got really excited. Of course, it's an industry of exhibitionists who long to go mainstream. So when there was like mainstream media attention, the wiser souls in the industry would disdain it, because they knew that the media was going to primarily focus on a negative angle about the industry. But aside from those few wise souls, most people were just really excited, like, oh, TV cameras. Let me tell my story. Let me get famous. People want to get famous. So what percentage of female porn stars are introverts? A substantial amount, but virtually all porn stars, even if they're introverts, they still want attention, even though it's contradictory, but they still want attention, because that's the only reason to become a porn star. If you just want to make a living with your body, working as a prostitute is the easiest way for many women and many guys to make money. But you can do that privately. So porn stars are hookers without shame. So porn stars are hookers who want attention. Most hookers don't want attention. They don't want their image being sold of their private deeds. So other thing that kind of jumped out to me is that of the homes that were rented to shoot these movies, it seemed like about half of them had mezuzahs on the doorposts. And also a lot of the porn stars would have gold crosses like bouncing between their breasts. So large number of the female porn stars were from Roman Catholic origins, and a large number of the male porn stars were of Jewish origins. At least half of the important business figures in the industry were Jewish. Of the female talent, seemed like about 5% or fewer had a college degree. For the male talent, yeah, about the same. So probably the biggest annual gathering was at the AVN convention, and everyone was up. It was like sleepaway camp for the porn industry. Like, everyone was up because everyone was there. Like, you're seeing, everyone in the industry. A lot of socializing, a lot of partying. There could be all these feuds that would develop during the year, but then when people would actually come face to face, the feuds would just die off, and people would drink together, party together, and it was just like going to sleepaway camp. So you may have gone to 6th grade with the same people that you go to camp with for a couple of weeks in the summer, but you're probably a lot more excited and had a lot more fun at your summer camp than at your prosaic school days, even though it's with the same people. So that's sort of how the AVN convention figured in the. It was like the social high point of the year, the porn industry. Okay, bye bye.